Welcome to my audience of CXOs and senior leaders. This is the Reflective Edge podcast series. Reflective Edge also happens, you can see on my screen, it happens to be the logo of my coaching brand. So I thought that it will be very useful on this occasion of launch of our logo to talk to accomplished leaders about what reflection has really meant for them. And it's a very useful thing in this fast-paced world where everybody, wherever I do coaching, they are all caught in this whole thing of conversations and immediate responses. So I thought that reflection is something which they really miss in their work lives. And when they come to a coach, really, they find it such a relief that they got plenty of space, plenty of silence, plenty of space to reflect. So that's the background of our logo, and that's the background of this series. And JK, of course, Mr. Jaikrishna is an extremely accomplished leader. He's a thought leader, really, in the HR space and leadership space. He recently completed 35 years of his career journey. And if you look at his LinkedIn posts, I get educated, and they're very deep and makes one really think. JK, thank you for joining me and my audience. JK is the president and group CHRO of Amara Group, and he's had a long and distinguished career. He started off with Murugappa Group as a management trainee way back in 1990, and then he rose from management trainee to head of HR over 14 years. That's always very creditable for somebody to start at the management trainee thing and then rise to a very distinguished position. It talks about his contributions that he would have made. And then he joined thereafter head of group HR with TK Bitla Group, then joined as president and CHRO of Amara Group. And his passions are teaching, training, and very interestingly, acting. Maybe you would like to tell us a little more about, I'm sure you don't act at work, so you must be pursuing it outside of work. And talking about his education, JK is the first rank holder in his post-graduation from Madras School of Social Work. He's also done a general management and leadership development program at IIM Bangalore. He's a ICF certified coach, and he's done a course on family business advisory from an institution in the US. He's already doing advisory for the promoter family within the Amara Group, and he wishes to pursue this in future as well. So, JK, please.
I should at the outset thank you for getting me over here and on this first edition of Reflective Edge. I really like what you said about your logo. In one way, as I reflect on the logo, I would say I see two individuals facing to each other. I also see in one another way that there is a spring that happens. So the impact and consequence of reflection is what I see as the spring of awareness, possibly. Truly appreciate Ramesh getting me over here. Truly like this reflective kind of a subject that you have brought in. I appreciate, and thanks for considering me.
Thank you so much, JK, for being here with us. So, JK, let me ask you a few questions about the role of reflection, really, in your life and career, and how it's helped and so on. That's my first question, really. What's the role of introspection and reflection? I know that these are a little different. I saw a recent LinkedIn post of yours differentiating between these two. So if you would please talk about the role of introspection and reflection in your life and career, JK.
Sure. True. Ramesh, those are two words that we sort of interchangeably use. But there is, I would say, a subtle difference between what it is and how we apply in life. If I were to say, introspection is something like you looking at the mirror right now, going a little deeper and saying, what's happening now? In my perspective, I'm saying, using that metaphor. Reflection, on the contrary, I would say it's like possibly looking a video of your past. If you're watching, a film,
okay,
and then saying what happened, what was the, what was the motive behind that particular behavior that has happened. So subtle difference, but impactful in my own way. And I think predominantly people use reflection as a term, which is great. It's good enough. It's very meaningful. So I think that's the subtle difference that I would sort of bring it, and that's something that I strongly believe in a daily application. And that shouldn't be a conscious effort like how we sit for meditation. That should be a natural process that should happen. But let me caution here, reflection is not overthinking. Reflection could be a little deep thinking.
Mm. So introspection is all about not necessarily dwelling into the past.
Not necessarily.
Reflection is all about the reflecting on the past.
Yeah.
So from a coaching standpoint, which talks all about the present and the future, introspection may be a better word
For introspection.
or to apply to coaching.
Yeah, if it is here and now, at the moment, what is happening now, yes. But sometimes you may have to go a little to the past to make things better for the future.
Sure. Okay. So, JK, coming back to my original question.
Yeah.
So, reflecting on your life and career.
Yeah.
So, at various points of time, what role has reflection played in your life?
Sure. I think be it early in my, I would say, I don't know when this habit sort of started forming. I would give it a lot of credit to curiosity. A curiosity to understand why are things like this, what makes it so, and possibly an annoying child to parents on various things. Everything I wanted to know. All of us as children make sometimes questions that are very embarrassing. And I was also one in that form, be it anything that happens on life, what makes it happen? So what is it? So I think curiosity was there. That sort of later moved on to a phase, I think became a great spark for what I call it as reflection. So if I look at my early days in school, I came out of a convent school where I was a very average student, and the class, especially my section, was a bright academic students, and all of them are at real celebrity positions that I would say today. I'm happy that I rub shoulders with them. But the fact remains, at that point of time, I was just an average student. And like Ramesh, you said in the intro, I used to do a lot of mono acting, theater work, all that in those schools. I enjoyed doing recitation, elocution. These are things that I really enjoyed. So moving on with that kind of a cult within me, and I moved on, I found that whenever I reflect, I knew what I was, and I knew that I need to build on what I am, on my strengths, and equally recognizing what I don't have. Yeah. Moving on in career, from the mistakes that I have made, the failures that I've had, there is, you sort of reflect and learn the vulnerabilities that you have as a person. So it's not just about the great things that happened in your life, but it's also about looking at the vulnerabilities. And I would say I would have gone on to sort of embrace vulnerabilities while I keep recognizing what my strengths and capabilities are. I think this process of reflection, and as you move in life, this sort of became a daily behavior. And I found that this reflective process has really fueled me to be a better human being. That's the way I see how reflection has helped across, I would say, not just career, even in life in general.
So, JK, anything stands out for you in terms of any specific incident at some point where, in hindsight, the power of reflection played a key part in you moving forward?
Ramesh, I would say, something that early on in the career, I remember I was hardly 26 years old, and we had a very strong union at that point of time in the factory that I was working. I was the head of personnel for that factory at that point in time. We had a landmark settlement to be done. It later became landmark, Ramesh, but the issues were complex. We had a very, very aggressive union leader. In fact, I would say And that man, very, very quite famous at that point of time, and he was on his late 70s. And here is a guy who's supposed to be the chief negotiator at his 26 years. And I remember when we were talking about certain things as to how it should make happen, while you have your general works manager and others, the corporate would come in only at the last moment, and typically those days negotiations do happen. I remember at a point of time that how he cut me off and said, people with few years of experience come and sit at the negotiating table and do not understand ground realities. I just don't understand how management of a company like this can, send babies for negotiation or something of that sort. And I remember, Ramesh, it sort of really cut me off, inside, that really happens. And I truly be thankful of the break that we took at that point of time. This is Ramesh, that if he had told you directly, that's something else. But this is something that he is telling his own colleagues, office bearers, a little distance away during the break. And he wants me to hear that as well, right? So on that break continued, I went back to my room, the office, and the only way that I could gain composure was by reflecting it. And as divinity sometimes happens, I then call up my corporate HR head and tell him, this is what is happening, and they're trying to buckle in always, but I think we need to shift the liver a little more. And I got the conviction even from the CEO to go ahead and make it more firm as required. And I got back with a lot amount of resilience. And I remember, Ramesh, that reflection, which is just a few minutes of reflection that you do to understand what your strengths are, what your vulnerabilities are. At that point of time, what is your weakness? That you are young. Young is, you being young was the weakness of the system. But then when we got back, not that I was fearful, but I was assertive, I was composed, I was articulate. To go on to say, Ramesh, later in the, unions do have their annual general meeting. And we had a culture where one of the stenographers goes there to their annual meeting. They make notes. That's an understanding between the management and the union. So we concluded the settlement. And I remember the same union leader that said, I just cannot imagine young boys like this are so pragmatic in their approach in concluding issues of this magnitude. I mean, that even today, I get the goosebumps. Is purely, I sort of give it to the reflective process. What you are, embrace your vulnerabilities, understand your strengths, and play it. Little long, Ramesh, sorry, but since you asked me.
No, lovely. It was so rich. It was so rich in terms of learning.
Yeah.
And it brought out the real meaning of reflection and composing yourself and so on. Brilliant. Thank you for that, JK. So are you in general a reflective person, or did you have to go back to it, remind yourself to take it easy, take it slow? In that sense, what role it has played?
Sure. Ramesh, something that I am truly inspired is one Swami Vivekananda. He has this powerful quote, I'm sure you would have heard it. Talk to yourself once in a day. Otherwise you might miss meeting an intelligent person in the world, right? And that truly holds for me. And of course, that is the power of introspection, and do not miss to. So to date, for me, it's a natural process. Sometimes it happens even more than once a day. It's not necessarily, that you do this between this time to this time, like I talked about, say, meditation. Maybe there are people who do meditation naturally and more often also. But for me, meditation is you consciously do it possibly in the morning a little. I think this process of talking to yourself and understanding what's happening is critical. And like you rightly said, intentionally pause. That is a behavior I think I have cultivated over a period of time. While you are in the midst of several things, you will be at your own action. You are dancing, you're performing, you all that. But then you need to know, when do you intentionally pause, take a step back, reflect, be patient, and then move forward. It's like a pit stop refueling. That's what I would say. Sure. So pause, reflect, realign. That's my favorite. And that's when, like you rightly said at the intro, they suddenly realize there is so much of space, there is so much of time available for you to actually bring in your own self-awareness, understand your own potential, and then move ahead.
Mm. So I'm very curious. My last question, really, JK,
Sure,
is
sure.
I'm very curious to understand. I worked in corporate for a long time, but not after I became a coach.
Okay.
So therefore, this is born out of curiosity
Right.
about what happens in corporates these days. Are these kind of conversations that we are having
Yeah.
about reflection and
Mm.
how can we grow as a person and so on? Are these common in corporates?
Having the coaching conversations, you're saying, Ramesh?
Not coaching conversation specifically, but about things about reflection. Whatever you said to me,
Mm.
how do you enable reflection? And does reflection, if there is, let's say, a heated argument going on, do people take a step back and get into a conversation on how we can handle it differently? Or does the conversation go on and we lose the benefit of a slower, more conscious conversation?
Great question, Ramesh. Consciously pausing while
Mm,
there is a heated argument that happens is very rare. But I think each one of us have the power to influence. I think you and me would have definitely seen some great leaders, and I do practice that often.
mm,
When there is a heated argument, there is sometimes a wisdom that comes in and somebody says, can we just hold on? Can we take this offline? Sometimes offline is for regression, but sometimes, you said, can we just hold on? Because the intention at that point is to stop the heatedness there and bring that mercy. And then if you can actually take a different time zone and then say, let's sit together and discuss that day that happened. But please understand, and both start reflecting. And one person says their stance, the other person shares their stance. And then, you start reflecting about yourself. I wish it happens more, but in a busy corporate life, sometimes, it actually happens only when it reaches a peak. Ideally, it
mm,
shouldn't be so. It should
mm,
happen even, business as usual, it should happen ideally. But many a
mm.
times when it goes a little uncontrollable is when we take that step.
Thank you, JK. So wonderful talking to you. You set me thinking. You set me reflecting, and I'm so happy to realize that we've kind of got a great uh, brand name called the Reflective Edge after talking to you. Thank you so
You.
much for that, giving that conviction. And thanks to my audience of CXOs and top leaders. I'm sure that you would have got plenty from this conversation and from JK's deep and wise words. Thanks a lot for being with us and hope to see you again with my next great speaker. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, JK.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ramesh. Thank you, everyone who have come across. Thank you so much.